Ladies and gentlemen, happy holidays. So folks, I kind of let a lot of things that I saw, played, and watched, two of those are the same meaning, just different words, pile up. I kind of let it pile up in this holiday season. I hope everybody had an excellent Thanksgiving, and hope everybody's having a very Merry Christmas. It is, of course, the most wonderful time of the year. Happy holidays, folks, but I got quite the behemoth of a video for you today. Lots of things to talk about it. Let's not waste any time. First thing I want to touch on is God of War Ragnarok, and this is a really funny one because I started playing this the day after it came out, I believe, so that was November 10th, and it was a long game, so I really just wanted to get through it, have enough time to make the review for everybody, and I finished it in just a bit over a week, I believe, and so I was ready to do the review and everything, yada yada, and then, whole little break here for the channel. And so I obviously wanted to give this one, enough time, enough attention. And I will start off by saying that I was not the biggest fan of the original God of War. I thought it was pretty overrated. These kinds of games in general aren't typically my thing. I don't love the whole upgrading system. When it comes to like weapons or characters and stuff like that, that's just really not my thing. And in general, fantasy as a genre is fine. It doesn't really ever stick out to me. Elden Ring was a game earlier this year. Obviously, a lot less mainstream than a film like God of War Ragnarok, but still very much incorporating all these elements. And I was not a big fan of Elden Ring. I can recognize the incredible game, the incredible gameplay, the effort put into a game like Elden Ring, but it was not personally for me. God of War Ragnarok is a step up from God of War. And I will say that if I were to play God of War again, I probably would enjoy it more, just being more familiar with the franchise and having a bigger appreciation for the original story after having played this one. But it raises the stakes in every single way imaginable. The first one only came out about 4 years ago, so a lot of the gameplay is the same. The graphics aren't too much better. So a lot of the things that were good about the first one remain here. And then, of course, you have added benefits like a better story, higher stakes. All the worlds are available and open. And this is the final game in their little saga. This isn't a trilogy like I thought it was going in. So this is the end. So it's really, really building up to something throughout the entire game, and it absolutely excels. A game like God of War is never going to be my favorite game because, again, I just don't really mesh entirely with the kind of game that it is. But I still had a very good time. I don't think I needed necessarily to work with the features that it provided. So again, like upgrading a weapon constantly or stuff like that, that isn't essential to enjoy or appreciate the game because I didn't do it and I still like the game. I'm sure it enhances enjoyment if you do like those features, but I love the game perfectly fine without those. And overall, I guess, a few complaints here and there. It is a very long game, and a lot of the missions do feel, if you're going to have storyline missions and side missions, the story missions, a lot of them don't necessarily feel like they're constantly contributing to the main mission at hand, the main goal at any given time. A lot of them feel a bit like you're trotting off the path that has been laid out, but that's fine. And then a lot of the missions, they even make a joke about it. They're pretty self-aware about this fact. You have to keep trying things until you find the right thing, or keep fighting bosses until you find the right thing. And it's really just to pad it out a little bit. The bosses obviously get harder. You obviously keep exploring different realms of the map, different enemies, all sorts of stuff, find all sorts of creatures, all sorts of treasure, the more you explore. But it does get just a little exhausting time and time again. But overall, very much appreciated God of War Ragnarok. I like this game quite a bit. Love the story. Got nothing bad to say about that. I do have some plans, or I did have plans for some other videos I would make, probably a character ranking for Ragnarok, as well as the boss fights. I was going to rank the top 10 boss fights of Ragnarok. So if you like the game, if you want to see those videos, let me know in the comments down below, and I will be sure to get those out. But as of right now, God of War Ragnarok, almost nothing bad to say. Very much like the game. They did an excellent job. Very excited to see what Santa Monica Studios does next, because, again, as much as this style of game isn't my favorite thing, undeniably They are incredible developers, and they managed to win me over to their side, and I will no longer be making fun of God of War as incessantly as I did before. So God of War Ragnarok is going to be a high A. Very much liked it. Don't know if I'll replay again, but I liked it playing it. What more can I say? Then let's talk about one that I have wanted to talk about for quite some time, and that is going to be Andor, the Star Wars show. And Ryan and I, my brother Ryan, we did this show for a bit on the channel here called Cinema Conversations. I don't know if we're going to continue those, but they were fun while they lasted. And pretty much every time there was a new Andor, we would talk about them on the show. And my thoughts have not changed. I was very excited for the show, first of all. I saw the trailer and I knew what this was about, and instantly I was hooked because I have always wanted something. I like exploring new things in Star Wars. And so, the movies are fine. You judge them case-by-case basis, but they're all pretty similar. It's all Jedi fight Sith, yada, yada. And so this is a massive world with a ton of potential. And so when you're exploring that potential, I find you get very, very interesting scenarios. And something that hasn't, you get it a little bit in Rogue One, not much else outside of that, is the rebellion itself. No Jedi, no Sith, none of these galactic ship battles and, endless Clone War fights, whatever. Just the ground level rebels, the people who put in the hard work, they live and they die on this rebellion. They're never spoken about in the series. They go unnoticed, but their work is just as important as anybody else in the grand scheme of the fight. And that's what Andor was marketed as, and that's what it ended up being. And so I was thrilled from the start for the show. Then we got episode 1 and 2 and 3, and it was obviously a very slow pace. I did like what it was doing. I would still probably give it a positive review if it kept going like that. And I do think it contributed in general to just the lore of Star Wars and creating a tone and an atmosphere and a vibe and introducing characters to us. But it was not the most interesting thing in the world. And then from episode 4 on, the show really hooked me. 4 through 6, it goes through these 3 episode arcs, really. So 1 through 3, a little bit slow, but it's set up. I understand its purpose. 4 through 6 is a heist, a bit of a heist setup. And 4 and 5 are really meet the crew, figure out everybody's role, yada, yada. Interesting stuff. Still a little slow paced, not incredible television, but good. Episode 6 is where you really got me into the show. Like Andor it had me, it was pulling me with its rope, and it just yanked me by episode 6, because that's when the actual heist occurs. And my God, is it just phenomenal television. After the heist, you get another, it's really, copying a lot of all these different stories. You've got a heist story, obviously, and then you have Prison Break. You get a little bit of a Prison Break arc with Andor in the mix. And then throughout, you have a whole bunch of characters, each of which fills an interesting role. And the best thing about Andor is obviously the writing. It is just brilliant. It is unlike anything Star Wars has ever done before. Not just the dialogue and the way these characters interact. Some of the, like Luthen as a character, is something we've never really seen in Star Wars before. But this guy's just so dedicated to the rebellion. And you see it in this monologue. I forget the episode, but it's an unforgettable monologue that just completely represents his character, his mission, and it's everything I wanted the show to be about. It has a political message, it's very thematic, deeply relevant, and it's something that fits very well with what Star Wars has always been about from the beginning, and it's the idea of a rebellion resisting the oppression of a tyrannical empire. And at its core, that is what Andor is about. There is no mistaking that whatsoever. And in terms of just exciting writing, enthralling set pieces, wonderful action, wonderful characters, wonderful character interactions, it's got all that. But it also has the much deeper layer that makes fiction so good, which is personal commentary on our society as it stands. It's one thing to get a really great, entertaining Star Wars show like a Mandalorian, but it's another, and it's far more impressive to be able to say something about our world at large within those confines as well. And Andor does it spectacularly. So not only is it fun, not only is it engaging, it's brilliant. And I'm very excited for season 2. It's everything I hoped it would be, and it's going to be a very, very, very high A. Then let's talk about the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. And I just remembered I have to rank the Phase 4 MCU films. So that one is coming because I said I would rank them after I saw this. And it's okay. It's very Guardians, and I appreciated it. It is nice to just have some content, but it wasn't spectacular. And I'm not nervous for Guardians 3, but it did feel like James Gunn, Guardians of the Galaxy, with some constraints. I don't know what they were. I don't think they were budget, because obviously, there's some pretty expensive looking stuff here. Might have been time. I'm not really sure, but the humor didn't always land as well for me. It did feel just a little bit rushed. Maybe it was time constraints, not just, how long it had to be, but also how long they had to work on it. I'm not really sure, but it serves its purpose. It's not super memorable. It's not something I'm going to rewatch. It's not a Christmas classic by any means, but it served its role just fine. It's set up for Guardians 3. I'm still excited for Guardians 3. I'm expecting it to be wonderful like the other two. And not much more I can say than that. So Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special is going to be a B. And then I'm going to save that one for last. Let's talk about Steven Spielberg's The Fabelmans. And if you know me, you know that I love Steven Spielberg. He is my favorite director of all time. He is my idol in every sense of the word. I admire the man and everything he's done. I think he's the greatest director of all time, and I'd be willing to fight anybody on that, so please leave your thoughts below in the comments. And I was obviously very excited for The Fabelmans, not just because it's a new Spielberg movie, but because it's about his life. And I know a lot about his life before. There was some stuff that I just remembered learning about in my research of him when I was younger. Seeing it on screen was magnificent, but I was always a little bit nervous, not very, because I'm not a big fan of coming-of-age films. I find that a lot of them have just become this very formulaic, overdone, overly emotional, boring films, right? What a genre that used to be so full of hope and light has just become endlessly churned out, fit in different scenarios. It's like a cookie cutter. You put the little coming-of-age cookie cutter on any type of character, any type of genre, any type of person, anything, and just make your little coming-of-age film. And some of them stand out, and some of them don't. And I will tell you that The Fabelmans, unfortunately, still for the most part, falls into the trap of most coming-of-age films, in the sense that it often relies on a lot of these tropes. It can be very basic, and in general is a little too cheesy for me. Just a little bit. I will say that The Fabelmans is overwhelmingly redeemed in how it explores filmmaking. And this might just be because I love film, the craft in general, and it feels weird to say, because obviously this man is operating on such a different scale than I ever will. Hopefully I'd like to be like him, obviously. But he speaks to the creative inside everybody in this film, is what it seems like. And so every line of dialogue about making films or art, or every scene that is just magnificently captures the beauty of being able to tell a story, it touched me deeply. It was something that I loved, that I appreciated, that I haven't necessarily seen before in a film. I have never seen something that has so spectacularly captured what it feels like to be able to tell stories. And that's the magic of cinema. Spielberg is truly, I don't know how anybody could deny this man's greatness when you see how he's able to capture such an emotion throughout multiple scenes, whether it's a kid filming a train or filming his friends in a war zone, telling an actor how to act, all these wonderful parts of filmmaking that you just would never think about, like dust in a what do you call it? A stage? No, I don't know. But you get what I'm saying. All the small elements of craft that go into filmmaking that are represented here, I just loved. I really thought it was incredible. But again, coming of age stuff, and the film is really, I don't even know if it's half and half. I would say it's probably more coming of age stuff. And as the film goes along, it unfortunately does become more about a kid growing up and his family troubles and yada yada. And you always have the film stuff, to be sure, because this is a film about Steven Spielberg. But the coming of age stuff was not my favorite. And I really like Tony Kushner as a writer. I really like Tony Kushner and Steven Spielberg as a pair. West Side Story which they, wrote together, they worked on last year. One of my favorite films of all time at this point. I was underwhelmed by the writing. I thought there were some pretty bad dialogue choices. I thought the pacing was all over the place. And in general, I think, again, it fell too often into these traps that you see with coming-of-age films and ended up being a lot more basic than it should have been. And that was a big detriment to the film. So I did not love The Fabelmans. I did like the filmmaking elements of it. I do think Steven Spielberg is still the greatest to ever do it, but I was left largely unimpressed by The Fabelmans. So it is going to be a B. And then the last film I want to talk about is another one that I had very high expectations for, and that's Rian Johnson's Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. And this was most recently, I was always super hyped for it. I liked the first Knives Out. I was expecting big things from this one. But recently it's really started to, the hype had been building up for sure. And it was my most hyped film of the year for a couple months at least. And so when I saw this one, walk into the theater, and I obviously want it to be good, but 2022 in general, a few of the films have let me down, especially recently. And from the get-go, I knew that I was safe, because it opens up with this incredibly just flashy, really, really fun and energetic scene. The editing is perfect. The acting is perfect. It introduces all the characters spectacularly. The humor, my God, is this film funny. And so off the bat, I knew I was in good hands. And so for the next 2.5 hours, Rian Johnson took me on this fun, hilarious, unbelievably entertaining ride. There are no, I don't know that this is probably going to be the most fun franchise to ever exist by the time it's complete. Because wow, how can you make a film so fun? I'm very glad I got to see this with an audience, because just the experience of being able to hear the gasps and the laughs, the chuckles with everybody else there, and following each reveal one by one with them, it's fantastic. I think it is brilliantly written. I love the mystery here. Again, we talked about it with Andor, but the idea of having a commentary, which Rian Johnson is very, very good at. He is very capable of taking genres and splicing commentary in there seamlessly, really. I think it's just perfect the way that he can tell an, again, entertaining mystery while also revealing something much larger about our daily lives. So I am a massive Rian Johnson fan. I believe he has completely done it again. I like this one more than the first. I think the cast is brilliant. There's not a single weak link. I'm going to shout out Kate Hudson. I thought she was very, very good as Birdie J. Janelle Monáe, obviously. Daniel Craig as Benoit Blanc. Everyone, really. I really like Leslie Odom Jr. as an actor. But very fun film. Every element of filmmaking, by the way, is on point. The production design, spectacular. The costume design, good Lord, is it good. The visual effects are even pretty good. And I am so glad that this, as long as it's what Rian Johnson wants to do, and it sounds like he does, then please keep making these films, because I'm going to eat them up every single time. Keep giving me different time periods, different places, whatever you have to do, Rian Johnson, and I promise you I will be there. If nobody else is going to watch them, they will. But if nobody else is, you know I will. I'm your guy. So, brilliant film. Loved every single second of it, and I can't wait for the third movie. Alright folks, that should do it for just about everything that I missed. Coming up, what do we have? Rick and Morty, Season 6 ends next Sunday, so I'll probably do a review of that. We're a little mid on that one. What else? Some movies to round out the year. We've got some heavy hitters. Avatar comes out soon. That'll be a fun review. And overall, folks, 'tis the season to be jolly. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.